This happened just a month ago. I'm 32, and normally I don't go out much. I work as a graphic designer and prefer being at home, but my neighbor threw this huge New Year's party. I thought maybe I should give it a shot. I figured I could meet some new people and, I don't know, maybe pretend to enjoy myself for a night. I've never stopped thinking about it. The house was massive and brightly lit. Fairy lights draped from the ceilings, and laughter was everywhere. But there was something about it that felt weird. The layout was odd. Rooms twisted around corners, and hallways led to places I wasn't sure how to navigate. I felt lost, even as people danced and celebrated. Around midnight, I needed a break from it all. I slipped into a small room that was quieter. That's when I heard them. Two voices raised in anger. I couldn't quite hear the words, but the tone was sharp. Panic filled the air. My heart started racing. I thought about leaving, but I froze like a deer in headlights. After that, I decided to find a drink. As I scanned the room, I caught sight of a woman. She sat across the room, staring at me with an unsettling smile. Part of me thought it was friendly, but something felt off. I tried focusing on my drink, but I could feel her gaze heavy on me. It made me uneasy. What did she want? Later, I stumbled across a phone on a table. It buzzed sporadically, messages lighting up the screen. I picked it up, curiosity getting the better of me. The messages were frantic, something about not letting him in and it's too late. My skin tingled. I straightened up and looked around. Nobody seemed to care, but I could feel a chill in the air. I decided to put the phone down and walk away. As I made my way back, I noticed the clock on the wall. It seemed wrong. The hands went backward. I blinked, and it ticked again, but this time it was moving even more slowly. I shook my head. Maybe I was drinking too much. When I finally rejoined the crowd, things felt different. Conversations were strained. The same woman was still looking at me, and now her smile seemed wider, almost predatory. I tried to move past her, but she stepped in my way. Her eyes locked onto mine. I think I stuttered something, but she didn't respond. Then, just as midnight struck, a loud crash echoed through the house. I turned to see what happened. Suddenly the lights flickered, and for a split second I thought I saw something or someone standing right behind me. I turned around. There was nothing there. When I looked back, the woman was gone. The crowd's excitement felt hollow as they laughed, completely oblivious to what had just happened. I think everybody here harbored secrets, and I'm not sure if I really wanted to know them, but that feeling lingered all night. The party didn't feel like a party anymore. Did I belong here? What was I missing? I felt dread wash over me as I scanned the room, looking for answers I wasn't sure I wanted. And then I heard her voice again, soft and clear. "Why are you still here?" I turned slowly, my breath catching in my throat. The voice wasn't coming from anyone nearby, but rather it seemed to echo from the walls themselves. My skin prickled. I glanced around, but the crowd danced on, oblivious to my growing unease. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The laughter drowned me out. I wanted to approach someone, anyone, just to feel anchored in this bizarre reality, but fear rooted me in place. Then, amid the chaos, I saw her again, the woman from before. She was weaving through the crowd, moving impossibly fast like she was gliding. As I watched, her head turned sharply, her eyes locking onto mine. The grin was still there, stretching wider, revealing too much teeth. Against my better judgment, I stepped toward the back of the room, seeking a way out. But the moment I turned my back, I felt a cold breath on my neck. It sent goosebumps racing down my spine. I whipped around, but no one was behind me. Just shadows and dancing bodies, their faces twinkling with excitement. But I felt the tension growing, and I started sweating. I needed to calm down. I edged back to the bar, hoping for something stiff to settle my nerves. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted the same phone again, still buzzing with notifications. I picked it up instinctively, but this time it felt heavier in my hand, almost like it was alive. The screen lit up and I read the messages again. "They're here. Don't let them see you." I shuddered. Whose phone was this? I glanced at the crowd. The same people danced, but now their movement seemed robotic, as if they were pulled by strings. And just like that, a flicker of doubt crept into my mind. What if this was not just a party? What if it was something far more sinister? Suddenly a loud crash erupted from the far side of the house, different from the earlier noise. People gasped and scrambled. My heart raced as I turned to see the source. A table had overturned, glasses shattered, but it wasn't the mess that alarmed me. It was the figure standing rigidly above the wreckage, a man, tall, dark hair, and the same unsettling smile as the woman's. He hadn't been there a moment ago. I must have miscounted. My head spun as I took a step back. That's when I felt that cold breath again, now brushing down my other side. I whipped back, and there she was, right beside me, inches away. "Are you ready to leave?" she asked, her voice dripping with something I couldn't place, malice or kindness. I wasn't sure. In a sudden panic, I dropped the phone, not wanting to acknowledge the weight of its secrets any longer. As it clattered to the floor, the laughter stopped. All eyes on me. And then everything went dark. When the lights flickered back on, everything had changed. The music was gone, replaced by an oppressive silence that pressed against my ears. The crowd had vanished, leaving only an empty space cluttered with fallen glasses and broken chairs. It was eerie, like stepping into a dream where I was the only one awake. I took a tentative step forward and then froze. The figure from before, the man with the smile, was still there, but now he stood just a few feet away. I could see his eyes glinting sharp and predatory. I struggled to breathe, my pulse echoing in my ears. "Where is everyone?" I managed to stammer, my voice shaking. He didn't respond. Instead, he tilted his head, studying me, as if I were a puzzle he couldn't quite figure out. That smile remained, unnaturally wide, like he was savoring my confusion. My body felt heavy, fear wrapped around my limbs like chains. Then I turned, half desperate for an exit. To my shock, the woman was in front of me again, blocking my path. She leaned closer, her presence overwhelming. "You shouldn't have dropped it," she whispered, her voice low, almost a hiss. In a frenzied movement, I backed away from both of them, heart racing, scanning the room for a way out. The darkness seemed to pulse around us, shadows creeping up the walls as though they were alive. "What do you want from me?" I yelled, the question echoing in the stillness. "We want you to play," she replied, and for a moment, her grin transformed into something more sinister. "You're already part of this game." A chill ran down my spine as I remembered the phone and the warning it held. "No," I said, shaking my head. But deep inside, I felt a flicker of dread. What kind of game were they talking about? I turned to run, but the man lunged forward, grabbing my arm. His grip was cold, almost like ice. I struggled, but he didn't let go. "You'll regret leaving," he said, his tone low and threatening. I kicked at him, my foot connecting with his shin. He released me, but I could see the annoyance in his eyes. I darted to the side, bolts of adrenaline fueling my legs. I had to get out. But as I reached the doorway, an unseen force pulled me back. I fell to the ground with a thud, my heart pounding louder than before. The air was thick, heavy, suffocating. The laughter returned, a cacophony that reverberated through me, making my skin crawl. Then everything went dark again. A flicker of light from the phone caught my eye, still lying on the floor. I reached for it, but my fingers brushed against something else, a small, cold metal object. I couldn't tell what it was in the dim light. That's when I heard it. Whispers swirling around me, words I couldn't understand. They pressed into my mind, drowning out everything else. The party wasn't over, and I was still its unwilling guest. I scrambled backward, my heart racing as I fought to make sense of my surroundings. The whispers grew louder, like a swarm of angry bees buzzing just out of sight. I felt an urgency to get to the phone. With trembling hands, I gripped it tight and tried to stand. The light from the screen illuminated the cold metal object next to me. A small key. It gleamed with an unsettling intensity, contrasting sharply against the debris surrounding me. I picked it up, feeling the weight of it in my palm. My mind raced. A key could unlock something vital, something about this twisted game I had fallen into. Then the darkness began to shift, almost breathing around me. Shadows danced, twisting and turning like figures trying to escape into the light. Panic clawed at my throat. I had to find a way out. But where could I go? I was trapped in this terrible purgatory with those two, smiling like they owned the night. Suddenly, I heard movement. My pulse quickened as I turned to face the sound, ready to bolt if I had to. A faint outline materialized through the creeping darkness. It was a figure, hunched over as if searching for something. I strained to catch a glimpse, praying it wasn't one of my tormentors. "Is anyone there?" I called out, my voice catching. The figure paused, straightening up, and I saw a glimpse of familiar clothing, a party dress, glittering and torn. "Help me," she pleaded, her eyes wide with fear. "I need to get out of here too." My breath caught. "What's happening? Who are you?" "I was just dancing, and then—" She faltered, glancing around nervously. "I don't even know how I ended up here. They took everyone." The sound of laughter echoed again, more menacing than before. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. "We need to stick together," I said, gripping the key tightly. "We have to find a way out." As we moved toward each other, the shadowy figure shifted again, and the other two reappeared, eyes locked on us. The man's grin widened, and the woman tilted her head in mock concern. "Oh, you found a friend," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "But you both should know. The game doesn't end until we say so." I forged ahead, pulling the other girl along with me. The laughter turned to shrieks, swirling around us like a storm. "They're trying to frighten us," I gasped, gritting my teeth, "but we can't let them." With that, I lifted the key, feeling a surge of determination coursing through me. "Show me what this unlocks," I shouted into the looming shadows. Before either of us could react, something jolted through the darkness. The air turned icy, and then a sound rattled through the silence, like a door creaking open somewhere nearby. That's when I realized perhaps the game had more than one level, and with it came the realization that I was no longer sure who or what was controlling it. The whispers escalated, growing frantic. I turned to look at the girl beside me, her face paling. We had entered something much deeper than either of us could fathom, and the laughter echoed again, filling the void of the empty room. We had to make a choice, and fast. The darkness shifted again, pulsating as if it were alive. I could feel dread coil in my stomach, but we had no choice. We had to move towards that sound. "Should we go that way?" the girl asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded despite the gnawing fear. As we crept forward, the shadows stretched out, swallowing us whole. The key felt heavy in my pocket, a reminder of the hope that flickered and dimmed around us. Each step felt like a step into a deeper abyss, the laughter outside forging a barrier I couldn't breach. We turned a corner and found ourselves in a long hallway lined with doors. Their surfaces were splintered, some slightly ajar, while others were completely sealed. "We should check one of these," I suggested, adrenaline pushing me forward. "Do you think one of them might lead us out?" she asked, her eyes darting to the shadows creeping along the wall. "I have to believe so," I replied, tightening my grip on the key. I chose a door directly ahead, its rusty handle almost begging for a touch. "Wait!" she cried. "What if it's a trap? Better than staying here, I said, fighting against the surge of uncertainty clouding my mind. I turned the handle slowly, barely making a sound. My breath hitched as the door creaked open. Inside was a small room, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. The air was thick with dust and something else, something rotten. My heart raced, but I steeled myself and stepped in, motioning for her to follow. "Look," she said, pointing ahead. In the center of the room stood a table covered in tarnished objects, old game pieces, photos, and a mirror. I slowly approached, unable to look away from the cracked reflection of myself that stared back. But then I noticed something behind me, hidden in the shadows. I turned quickly, and to my horror, I found a twisted figure peering at us through the doorway. It wore a disfigured mask, features barely recognizable. Its eyes gleamed unnaturally bright as it whispered, "Playtime's not over yet." Fear shot through me. "We have to get out of here," I shouted, grabbing the girl's arm as I dashed back toward the hallway. But as we retreated, the whispers swirled around us, rising to a deafening crescendo. The laughter grew louder, blocking our escape. "You've chosen wrong," a voice taunted. I glanced back and saw the masked figure moving closer. Its movements were quick, almost jerky, like marionette strings being pulled too tight. "Go, go," I urged, pulling the girl with me as I dashed for the nearest door. We burst through, locking it behind us just as the laughter echoed into a bone-chilling silence. We found ourselves in what looked like an old dressing room, full of sequined costumes and fake flowers. But the mirror across the room drew my attention. It pulsed with an eerie light, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. "Is that—" she started, but I interrupted her. "I've seen something like it before," I said, my chest tightening. "Maybe it leads to another way out." Just as I reached out to touch the mirror's surface, it cracked, spider webbing across its frame. My pulse quickened. What would happen if I pressed my hand against it? Would it shatter, or would it draw me in? And that's when I heard it, a soft voice whispering my name from the other side. "Help me." In that moment, I realized this was more than just a game. It was a fight for survival against forces I could hardly comprehend. One choice could mean the end, or a chance at freedom. I hesitated, heart pounding as the darkness loomed once more. Would this mirror show me the way out, or lead me deeper into madness? The mirror's surface shimmered, and for a brief second, I forgot about the horror outside. "Help me," echoed again, a plea that dripped with desperation. I took a step closer, but fear tugged at my gut. What if I reached through and didn't come back? "We need to find another way," the girl whispered, her eyes wide. I could see she was terrified, more than I was. But did we really have a choice? "Just 1 second," I murmured, feeling drawn to the strange glow. Questions raced in my mind. Who was on the other side? "If it's dangerous," she began, but I cut her off. "Please just trust me." I placed my hand against the mirror. The chill of the glass sent a shiver up my arm. Suddenly the light turned blinding, and I yanked my hand back as the mirror shattered. The pieces floated in midair like stars caught in an unseen wind. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through my bones. "What did you do?" the girl cried, stepping back. Before I could respond, a figure emerged from the wreckage. No more than an outline at first, but then it solidified. It was a girl, perhaps a few years younger than us, with wild hair and eyes filled with anguish. She looked just as lost as we were. "Help me escape!" she begged, extending her hand toward me. "Please!" Panic surged. "Do you know how to get out of here?" I asked, my voice shaky. "Yes," she said, her breath quickening. "But we need to move fast. The game is alive. It doesn't want us to leave." As if in reply, the air grew heavy, thick with a sense of impending doom. The laughter returned, mingling with the whispers, turning our sanctuary into a prison. "That's the thing," my companion said, her voice rising in pitch. We need to go, now. The girl in front of us stepped back, her eyes darting to the door. There's something behind you, she shouted, panic-stricken. I turned, and to my horror, the twisted figure from before emerged from the shadows of the dressing room, its grotesque mask grinning wider as it approached. More players, it hissed, its voice layered with mocking glee. Run, I yelled, grabbing the girl's arm, pulling her toward the other exit, the way the newcomer had indicated. We stumbled through a jagged path formed by the remnants of the mirror, the figure's cruel laughter echoing behind us. The hallway was a maze, twisting and winding, but I had to keep going. To my right, shadows danced along the walls, and I could hear the distant rumble of something large moving, pushing against the darkness. Is it behind us? The girl panted, fear crackling in her voice. I don't know, I replied, glancing back. The figure was nowhere in sight, but I could feel it watching us, eager to join the game again. Then I saw a doorway at the end of the hall, cracked open. This way, I shouted, sprinting towards it. As we beelined for the door, I felt a surge of hope. Maybe we could make it, but as we reached for the handle, the air abruptly shifted. The laughter grew louder, engulfing us both. I pushed against the door, but the weight of the noise seemed to solidify into an invisible wall holding us in place. Everything went dark. We were trapped. A new nightmare had just begun. I jolted awake to an oppressive darkness pressing in around me. Cold sweat clung to my skin, and I gasped for breath, every inhalation sending a sharp reminder of the nightmare we had just escaped. My heart raced as I blinked into the blackness, trying to gather my thoughts. Are you all right? A voice broke through the silence, shaky yet familiar. I turned to see the girl, not the one from the mirror, but my friend, who had been with me before all this madness started. I think so, I stammered. Where are we? I don't know, she whispered, her voice edged with panic. It's so dark, I can't see anything. I thought we'd escaped. I felt a surge of dread. I think we're still trapped, somehow. Just then, a flicker of light emerged, illuminating a small area in front of us. It was a faint glow, emanating from something on the ground. I stumbled toward it, my pulse quickening with both fear and hope. As I crouched down, I realized it was a card, stark white against the shadows. What is it? She asked, her breath quickening. I picked it up, the corner rough beneath my fingers. There was a symbol, an eye surrounded by intricate patterns and words inscribed in the center. The game has just begun. To win, you must listen. What does that even mean? She asked, scanning the darkness as if expecting danger to pounce. I don't know, but I think we need to... My voice trailed off. The word listen rattled around in my mind. What were we supposed to hear? Before I could voice my thoughts, the shadows around us stirred, shifting like mist. A distant sound filtered through the darkness, a low, rhythmic thumping that pulsed like a heartbeat. It grew louder, the beat blending with whispers that seemed to rise and fall like waves. Do you hear that? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Yes, she replied, wide-eyed. What is it? The rhythm intensified, punctuated by a sudden clash that sent a shiver down my spine. From the depths of the darkness, shapes began to coalesce, swirling into forms that mirrored our fears. I backed away, my instincts screaming at me to run. Is it the game? My friend gasped, clutching my arm. I don't know, I shouted, pulling her closer. The shapes became clearer, revealing twisted faces, each one more grotesque than the last, their eyes gleaming with malicious intent. Listen, a voice echoed from the throng, deep and sinister. Do you want to escape? Then play. I felt the chill of dread seep deeper. What does it want from us? Run, she yelled, and we dashed away from the awful sight. But the beating sound followed. The whispers turned to mocking laughter, echoing in the void. We bolted down a narrow passageway that opened up seemingly out of nowhere. The air felt electric, charged with a horrible energy. Each turn we took twisted my sense of direction, and soon we were lost in a labyrinth of shadows and sound. "Where are we going?" she cried, her breath hitching. "I don't know," I shouted back, desperation creeping into my voice. Just then, I caught sight of another glow ahead, flickering like a beacon in the dark. "Over there," I pointed, and we sprinted toward the light, fueled by a mix of hope and terror. But with every step the whispers grew louder, the laughter more relentless. When we reached the source, my heart sank. It was another door, bolted shut with thick chains. We frantically tried to pry it open, but it wouldn't budge. Then the voice returned. It dripped with malice. "Play or perish." "We can't," my friend sobbed, falling back against the door. I leaned beside her, staring at the chains binding our only exit. And then I realized I wasn't just playing for our lives. I was trapped in a game far more sinister than I understood. And as the weight of the whispers closed in around us, I couldn't help but wonder, what were the stakes, and who would pay? The laughter echoed through the air, a mocking reminder of our helplessness. I could feel my heart beating in sync with the oppressive pulse of the chamber. The flickering light from above cast long shadows, emphasizing the knots of anxiety tightening in my chest. "Do you think we can break the chains?" my friend asked, her voice trembling. I shook my head. "They look too strong. We need to find another way." Panic gnawed at the edges of my mind as I surveyed our surroundings. The darkness was closing in, and I could feel the oppressive weight of it. Suddenly the whispers shifted, morphing into something almost coherent. They weren't just taunts. There was a rhythm, a language I felt in my bones. "You have to listen." The voice rang out once more, and it seemed to rise from the very walls around us. "Listen," I echoed, confused. "What do we—" Before I could finish, the whispering grew louder and rose to a deafening crescendo. The air thickened, as if it were alive with foreboding. I fought the impulse to cover my ears. There was something important buried in that chaos, something that could guide us. "Close your eyes," I suggested, a desperate instinct guiding my words. "Maybe we can listen more clearly." "What?" she replied, hesitation stealing her voice. "Trust me," I urged, forcing myself to close my eyes. The darkness behind my eyelids felt different, not as stifling. I pushed aside my fear and focused, trying to discern the voices. Slowly, I picked out patterns, noticed how they repeated, much like the beat we had heard earlier. "I hear something," I murmured, my heart racing. "There's a pattern. It sounds almost like a code." "Can you understand it?" she asked, her voice sharper now with curiosity. I think so." The whispering formed into a rhythm that resonated deep within me. It reminded me of a childhood game, a simple puzzle, one that challenged memory and wit. "We need to repeat it." I opened my eyes and looked at the door. "Can you hear it?" I asked, the words spilling out. "It's like a chant. Listen." We began to chant what I heard, our voices shaky but growing stronger as we repeated the words. As we reached a crescendo, the shadows around us darkened further, swallowing the light whole. Then, with a loud bang, the chains rattled violently and the door trembled as if it were alive. "Keep going," my friend urged, her eyes wide. The energy in the room swirled around us, charged. We repeated the incantation again, louder, fueled by our desperation. Then it happened. A sudden blast of wind swirled through the corridor, sending chills through my body. The door lurched in its frame, and for a brief moment I thought it would give way, but instead it held firm, and the laughter returned, louder than before. "Play or perish," the voice thundered. "No, no!" I shouted, filled with anger. "We refuse to play your game." In that moment the room seemed to shift. Shadows coiled and uncoiled, revealing a flicker of light in the corner of my eye. I turned and my breath caught in my throat. There was something else there, something I hadn't seen before. A doorway. It shimmered like water, a way out amid the chaos. "That," I shouted, pointing. "We need to reach it." My friend nodded, determination replacing fear. "But what about the door?" "I think it's a distraction," I said, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "We need to trust what we heard." Before I could say more, the laughter escalated into a frenzied cacophony. We sprinted toward the shimmering doorway, heart pounding, hoping it would lead to our salvation. As we approached, shadows lunged after us, but we couldn't look back. And just as we leapt, everything went dark, plunging us into a silence that swallowed hope whole. I gasped as I landed on something soft. The darkness suddenly shifted, revealing a strange, dimly lit room filled with odd objects. My heart raced while I scrambled to my feet, nerves still jangled from our leap through the doorway. My friend stumbled next to me, breathless. "Where are we?" she asked, wide-eyed. "I have no idea." The walls were lined with shelves full of bizarre trinkets, broken clocks, rusted keys, and ancient-looking books. Each object seemed to hum quietly, vibrating against the silence that had replaced the chaos we just escaped. "Do you think this is real?" my friend whispered, gazing around. Her voice was edged with uncertainty. Before I could respond, a subtle glow caught my attention. I stepped toward it, my curiosity piqued. In the center of the room, a crystal orb pulsed with light, casting both eerie and gentle shadows against the walls. It felt almost alive, as if it was watching us. "That looks weird," my friend noted, taking a step back. I couldn't help moving closer. "Maybe it's connected to the whispers," I offered, my voice barely more than a breath. "What if it helps us understand what happened?" "Or it could trap us," she countered, still wary. I hesitated, reviewing the moment we had escaped the other room. My uncertainty hung thick in the air. Still, the orb radiated a warmth that was hard to ignore. I reached out, my fingers brushing against the crystalline surface. A surge of energy electrified my skin, and suddenly images flooded my mind. They were fragmented glimpses, people in masks, shadowy figures dancing and laughter echoing, but not the cruel laughter we had escaped. It was joyous, somehow familiar. I see something," I gasped, pulling my hand back. "A party? No, it's more than that. It feels like—" "What?" My friend prodded, eyes darting to the orb and back to me. "What are you seeing?" I think it's a memory. But it's not mine. It feels like it belongs to someone else," I stammered. The images twisted and shifted, blurring before they could fully reveal themselves. Frustration coursed through me. What did it all mean? Was it a trap? Or was there something deeper at play? "That's when I saw it," I said, the realization dawning on me. A shadow darted across the back of the room, a flicker that sent shivers down my spine. My heart raced again, but this time it wasn't just fear. It was something more primal, a warning. My friend caught my expression, and I could see her fear morph into determination. "What was that?" she whispered. "I don't know, but we need to move," I replied. "Now." As we turned to leave, the orb pulsed one last time, its light blinding. A cold breeze swept through the room and we froze, realizing we weren't alone. The shadow loomed larger, flickering and shifting as if it were reconstituting itself into a form we could recognize. "What is that?" my friend gasped, backing up against the wall. I swallowed hard, my mind racing with possibilities as the shape drew closer. Whatever it was, I had a feeling that it would change everything. Again. I blinked against the malevolent glow as the shadowy figure emerged fully into the light. It had the features of someone familiar, but the smile distorted its face, an exaggerated grin that didn't belong to a living being. "Welcome back," It hissed, voice echoing like a broken record. My heart raced, and I instinctively grabbed my friend's arm. Whatever this thing was, it was powerful, but the orb glowed brighter in response to my fear, casting a reassuring warmth around us. "Stop playing games," I shouted, trying to project confidence against the looming dread. I was done with running. We had faced too many shadows already. "What do you want from us?" The figure laughed, a garbled sound that reverberated off the walls. "The game is ancient, sweetheart. You're not the first to think you can escape. You must learn the rules before you can leave." "Rules?" I glanced at my friend and we exchanged puzzled looks. What could possibly exist in this twisted realm that paralleled actual games? What kind of rules? "Listen and play," it cried, echoing the structure of a chant. The orb pulsed again, and I felt its energy swirl around us, static and electric. I hesitated, then turned my attention back to the orb. "Why are memories tied to this? What do you want with them?" "Memories are the key," the figure screeched, shadows swirling around it. "Relive them, embrace them, only then can the door be opened." "Relive? What?" I felt the walls closing in, suffocating under the weight of its intent. "Why would we play along with whatever you're concocting? It's the only way." It belted, its voice turning more desperate, yet still saturated with malice. "Experience is the game's greatest treasure. You want to escape? Play along and you shall find what you seek." My friend whispered beside me. "What does it mean? What if it's lying?" "Does it matter?" I murmured back, my eyes darting between the figure and the orb. "If this is our only escape, we have to gather the courage to confront whatever those memories are." Taking a deep breath, I approached the orb once more. Light danced around me as I extended my hand, but this time I felt different, the ambiguity of fear contorted into resolve. "Okay," I said, steadying my voice. "We'll play your game." The figure grinned wider and the air around us thickened. "Then let the memories begin." The orb pulsed fiercely, blinding me in radiance before images overtook my mind. I was thrust into a whirlwind of fleeting memories, laughter shared, faces of people I once knew, moments that felt mundane but now were dipped in nostalgia, an old birthday party, my friends dancing around me, the warmth of sunlight on our skin. But just as I began to embrace these fragments, darker memories invaded, nights of loneliness, arguments with friends, moments where I felt utterly alone. Faces mutated into shadows. "No," I screamed, pushing against the pain. "I can't." "Embrace them," the shadowy figure urged, its voice hauntingly melodic. "To connect is the only way forward." I felt my friend tugging at my arm, but somehow our connection felt strong against the tide of despair. "Remember who you are," she whispered. "We can rise from this." With renewed strength born from companionship, I focused. Memories blended. Some became familiar moments tied to laughter and warmth, while others, laden with sadness, started to lose their weight. Patterns emerged, teaching me to confront what once frightened me. A sudden flash sent me reeling back, and I screamed as the figures morphed into an endless miasma. My heart pounded fiercely in my chest. The twisted faces around me surged into focus, mouths gaping with cries that felt deeply unsettling. But then came the sweet release of the orb's warmth, igniting a path behind them, spiraling towards that shimmering new doorway. "It's opening," I yelled, a wave of exhilaration washing over me. "Keep going, don't stop," my friend shouted, pulling me forward as I felt an unseen force grip at the edges of our experience, threatening to tangle us back in. The moment we reached the entrance, we charged through, breaking into a world far more vivid than the shadows we had left behind. I crumpled to my knees in a burst of light, gulping fresh air, tears pricking at my eyes while I tried to gather my senses. As I looked up, The grand majority of the party was still vibrant, pulsating with life. We were back in the house, but individuals glanced at us knowingly, as if the events inside had been witnessed by countless others. "Was it a dream?" my friend asked, breathless. "Did we really just go through all that?" "I don't know," I said, shaking my head, trying to piece together the chaos. "But I feel different. Scared, maybe, but alive." Then I noticed the shadows lurking in the corners of the room. The laughter, though joyous, now carried a haunting echo as I sensed the hint of familiar faces masked in an unsettling detail. They could still be there if I chose to look closely. "I don't think it's over," my friend whispered. "Not really." Even as I pondered the weight of that thought, I couldn't help but glance back to where the laughter ebbed and flowed, a mixture of joy and darkness tugging at my heart as I wondered, was it fate, or were we still precariously walking the line between reality and something far more sinister? I moved away from the crowd, unsure if the echoes would seek me out again. The game might have paused, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the questions and shadows behind it were looming, waiting for the next opportunity to rise again.